Louisiana Purchase of 1804 was mostly unexplored except for the narrow path followed by Lewis and Clark. Men scouted the expanses of western wilderness, searching for beaver which would bring a profit. They came to be known as mountain men. The mountain men were not trying to expand America, but were searching for beaver for the popular beaver hats back in Europe. This is William Ashley's ad, which brought about several would-be mountain men, such as Jim Bridger, Hugh Glass, Thomas Fitzpatrick, and others. The mountain men would be with few if any people while out in the wilderness, where they trapped and hunted, then traded their furs at annual gatherings called rendezvous. Their diet and health were good, as they always ate natural food and sickness was rare. Mountain men did not always have a safe and good life. They faced several dangerous obstacles such as bears, extreme heat, starvation, and the many kinds of Indians. Perhaps the greatest story of mountain man survival is that of Hugh Glass, who was on one of the Ashley expeditions, and while he was picking some berries, found himself a bear and 2 cubs, and Mama didn't like that too well. Hugh was severely mauled, and 2 men were left with him, one of them a juvenile Jim Bridger. On the 5th morning, however, they took his supplies and left him for dead. Glass suffered 250 miles back to Fort Kiowa. The Arikara Indians killed Glass about 9 years later while he was visiting the site of his escapade. The famous Oregon Trail was explored by parties led by William Ashley. Jedediah Smith, as you can see on this map, traveled from the east to California and was the first to do so. He also made the lasting discovery of South Pass while on an Ashley expedition. Others of his feats include being the first to travel the length and width of the Great Basin, and first to Oregon by way of the edge of California in the Pacific. Jedediah Smith was no ordinary mountain man. Through tough times, he stayed true to the Bible.
It was said of Jedediah that he made the lone wilderness his place of meditation, the mountaintop his altar, and that he made religion an active, practical principle from the duties of which nothing could seduce him.
John Colter, one of the original mountain men, was one of the earliest whites to see what is now the tourist destination of Yellowstone. It was called Colter's Hell because of things like this. Mountain men raced rivaling fur companies throughout the West in search of new sources of beaver, and in doing so, discovered these locations. The mountain men made a huge difference, as Michael W. Robbins states, in just 2 decades of trading, 1820 to 1840, the mountain men scouted much of the West, finding the best paths and passes from the Rockies to California and Oregon. These are some of the explorations of just 2 of the mountain men, Jedediah Smith and Joe Walker. Smith's travels are represented by the magenta line. He started up relatively close to the Great Salt Lake. Smith ventured down through present-day Utah, along the border of Nevada and Arizona, and into California. He proceeded north through California, through Oregon, and up into Washington. He crossed Idaho's panhandle into present-day Montana. He headed south, eventually crossing back into Idaho. Joe Walker's tracks are shown by the green line. From present-day Wyoming, he headed southwest through Utah, Nevada, and California. The mountain men's purpose in going west was to trap beaver and in turn sell and trade the pelts. The furs were used for the fashion statement back in Europe, the beaver hat. Their travels took them throughout the West, which no American had ever seen, in search of the material of which this hot commodity was made. By the 1840s, these hats were no longer the popular fashion statement, and the beaver became more scarce. This caused the mountain men to no longer venture like they once did. These adventures provided them with a good idea of what the West was like and where different features of the land were located. They then led others west with their extensive knowledge of the lay of the land. The mountain men were not the only people in the West. There are many tribes of Indians. Some mountain men took squaws as wives. Mountain man Jim Beckwourth was born an African slave, but took several Indian wives, lived with the Crow tribe, and even became a chief. Some Indians were peaceful and willing to trade with the mountain men. On the other hand, some Indians were hostile and killed whites. Of the mountain men's many discoveries, South Pass was critical. These Rocky Mountains were notoriously daunting. There was no way covered wagons could ascend them. South Pass made westward movement possible. Over 400,000 people traveled the Oregon Trail, and South Pass made that possible. Most of this happened between years 1843 and 1869. The blazing of the Oregon Trail in and of itself was great. In addition, the mountain men and their ventures traveled through many of the present-day western states. In their trapping, the mountain men explored thoroughly. This provided them with a great understanding of the geography. So great, in fact, that they were the leaders bringing settlers west and guides for explorations. The mountain men entered the formidable West and accomplished the impossible, crossing the Rocky Mountains. South Pass was found and wagon trains could head westward. The mountain men made the era of the cowboys, 49ers, and settlers possible. Our country now reaches from Atlantic to Pacific as a result of the mountain men.